Yo, what's up everybody? It's your man, MKBHD here, and we're back at it again with Apple in the news. This time it's all about the latest and greatest, or maybe not so greatest, iOS update, version 18.3.1. Now I say mystery because Apple's being pretty tight-lipped about this one. They haven't dropped a massive press release detailing every little tweak and change. Instead, we're in the rumor mill territory, piecing together hints and whispers from the tech world. But here's the thing. Even without all the fanfare, this update is kind of a big deal. See, whenever Apple pushes out an update with a .1 at the end, it usually means one thing: security. It's like Apple's way of quietly patching up any vulnerabilities or exploits that hackers might be trying to use against us, the unsuspecting users. So, even though we don't have all the details yet, it's safe to say that iOS 18.3.1 is all about keeping your iPhone safe and sound. Now I know what you're thinking. MKBHD, you're getting me all hyped up about security patches, but I'm a simple person. Just tell me, should I care? And the answer is yeah, probably. Look, in this day and age, our phones are like extensions of ourselves. They hold our photos, our conversations, our banking info, basically, our digital lives. So when Apple says, hey, we found a way to make your phone more secure, it's usually a good idea to listen up. Plus, these updates are usually pretty small and painless to install. We're not talking about a whole iOS 19 overhaul here. It's a quick download, a quick restart, and boom, you're good to go, with a phone that's a little bit safer from the bad guys. Alright, let's dive a little deeper into this whole security thing. Word on the street is that iOS 18.3.1 might be tackling some vulnerabilities that hackers have been trying to exploit. Now, I'm not talking about some amateur hour stuff here. We're talking about potential exploits that could give these digital ninjas access to your phone's core functions. Stuff you definitely don't want falling into the wrong hands. Specifically, there's been chatter about a vulnerability in Core Media, which is a key framework that handles how your iPhone deals with media files like photos, videos, and audio. Now you know me, I'm all about that 4K 60 frames per second life, so anything that messes with my media playback is a big no-no. But on a serious note, a vulnerability in Core Media could potentially allow hackers to install malware or even take control of your device just by getting you to open a malicious file. And we all know how easy it is to accidentally click on a shady link or download a file we shouldn't have. Apple's already patched up a bunch of security issues in the previous iOS 18.3 update, including a pretty nasty one that could have allowed hackers to escalate their privileges on your device. That basically means they could have gone from having limited access to your phone to basically having the keys to the kingdom. Not cool, right? So, yeah, this security patch stuff is no joke. It's about protecting your privacy, your data, and your peace of mind. Okay, so we've covered the security front. Now let's talk about the other reason why this iOS 18.3.1 update might be a welcome addition to your iPhone bug fixes. See, even Apple, with all their tech wizardry, isn't immune to the occasional software hiccup. And iOS 18.3, while a solid update overall, wasn't without its fair share of quirks and glitches. We're talking about things like Wi-Fi connectivity issues, Bluetooth acting up, and the camera app throwing a tantrum at the worst possible moment. And let's not forget about the dreaded battery drain, because who needs a phone that dies before lunchtime, right? Now I'm not saying that everyone who downloaded iOS 18.3 experienced these issues, but there were enough reports floating around online to suggest that something was up. And you know what they say, where there's smoke, there's fire, or in this case, a software bug. One of the more interesting issues that popped up was with Apple's own Apple Intelligence notifications. These are those handy little summaries you get for things like news and entertainment. Well, apparently they were getting a little too creative with their summaries, sometimes spitting out inaccurate or misleading information, so Apple temporarily hit the pause button on those. Section 4. The return of Apple Intelligence. Maybe? Now here's the thing about those Apple Intelligence notifications. We don't know for sure if they'll be making a comeback in iOS 18.3.1. It's possible that Apple's still working on ironing out the kinks and making sure those summaries are accurate and reliable. After all, nobody wants to be fed misinformation, right? But it's also possible that Apple's figured out a fix and those notifications will be back in action with this latest update. Only time will tell on that one. Personally, I kind of miss those summaries. They were a convenient way to stay up to date on the latest news without having to jump between a bunch of different apps, but I'd rather have them be accurate and reliable than fast and buggy. So, if it takes a little longer for Apple to get it right, I'm cool with that. Section 5, looking ahead. What's on the horizon with iOS 18.4? Okay, so we've talked about the present, iOS 18.3.1 and all its mystery. Now let's take a quick peek into the future. What's next for the iPhone? Well, rumor has it that iOS 18.4 is just around the corner, and it's shaping up to be a pretty substantial update. We're talking about new features, improvements to existing features, and maybe even a few surprises along the way. One of the biggest changes we're expecting to see in iOS 18.4 is a major overhaul of Siri. Now, Siri's been around for a while, but let's be honest, she hasn't always been the sharpest tool in the shed. But with iOS 18.4, Apple's reportedly giving Siri a much-needed intelligence boost. Section 6. Siri's Big Makeover, a glimpse into the future. We're talking about a Siri that's more conversational, more proactive, and more capable of understanding and responding to your requests in a natural way. Imagine being able to have a back-and-forth conversation with Siri, asking follow-up questions and getting detailed responses without having to repeat yourself a million times. That's the kind of Siri experience we're hoping for with iOS 18.4. And it's not just about voice interactions either. There are rumors that Apple's working on giving Siri a more visual presence on the iPhone, with on-screen interactions and maybe even some augmented reality tricks up her sleeve. Now I know what you're thinking, MKBHD, this all sounds great, but what about privacy? And that's a valid concern. With all this talk about a more intelligent Siri, it's natural to wonder if Apple's going to be collecting more of our data to make it happen. Section 7. The update game, to install or not to install. So, we've covered a lot of ground here today, from the mystery of iOS 18.3.1 to the future of Siri in iOS 18.4. But the big question remains, should you update your iPhone? As always, the answer is, it depends. If you're someone who values security above all else, then yeah, updating to iOS 18.3.1 as soon as it's available is probably a good idea. Those security patches are there for a reason, and they could be the difference between keeping your data safe and becoming the victim of a cyber attack. Plus, if you've been experiencing any of those pesky bugs I mentioned earlier, iOS 18.3.1 might just be the ticket to a smoother, more stable iPhone experience. On the other hand, if you're rocking an older iPhone and you're happy with how it's running, you might want to hold off on updating for now. Sometimes these newer updates can slow down older devices, so it's always a good idea to wait a few days and see what other users are saying before you take the plunge. As for iOS 18.4, well, that's a whole other story. We're still a little ways out from that update, so there's no need to rush into anything just yet. But one thing's for sure, the future of the iPhone is looking pretty exciting. Peace out.